Welcome to the Oh So Spurs podcast, where we've just come off the back of a 1-1 draw at West Ham. We'll be discussing that game. Was it a point gained, point dropped, 2 points dropped, or was it just a decent result? Then we'll be diving into Ange Postecoglou's latest press conference, team news as 3 players have been ruled out for the season, and then previewing our game against Nottingham Forest. And with us today, we have Sai. How are you?
Yeah, all good, mate. All good, you?
Doing very good, thanks. Doing good. And we have Johnny. How are you, sir?
Good to be back. As usual, few technical issues delaying things, but at least the Wi-Fi's fixed, so
We'll see.
It's one step forward, 2 steps back, but we'll see what happens. How are you, Jim, anyway?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Good,
I'm
good to
doing
see you
very
boys
well. Good to see you too. Welcome back. And you'll see behind Johnny, if you're watching on YouTube, he has a signed Sandro shirt. He actually met Sandro face to face and had a good chat with him. So we might chat a little bit about that. And before Johnny starts plugging it, his son got into Cambridge. So congratulations, Johnny.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Or more importantly, congratulations, Callum.
Well done, Callum.
Yeah, well done, Callum. But let's go over the West Ham game, shall we, guys? Johnny, as you've been away for a little bit, I'll start with you. Was that point gained, 2 points dropped, or just a semi?
I mean, I guess most of us probably would agree. Like, ultimately, it's one of those fixtures where you kind of would be a little bit nervous, personally. Anyway, I think like it's a huge game for them in particular. It's a nighttime game, which are always a little bit more atmosphere, maybe a bit more intimidating. I don't know. I think there is genuinely something in that from my experience of going to Tottenham games in the evenings. It's like definitely, especially in a derby, the atmosphere is dialed up a bit. So I don't think it's a bad result. I think, obviously Villa got turned over very handsomely by City the other day. City were pretty impressive, to say the least. And then, of course, last night we had Manchester United's hilarious implosion in the last 2 minutes of injury time. So, like, that's a significant result too. So I guess when you're sort of looking, I've seen a few things today where you're looking at the kind of ramifications of various points required, vis-a-vis Man United winning all their games or dropping 1 point or dropping 3 points or whatever, what we need to do. And albeit we do have some, really challenging games on paper. Well, I mean, there will be challenging games, whether it's on paper or not. When you look at the race for the Champions League places, if fifth gets the slot, the fifth slot goes to the English side, then you've got to say United are really doing their best to make it. I wouldn't say comfortable, but they're making it.
They've got to be
they're
done.
9 points behind us. I think that I think that's the biggest result in many ways of the week, and I don't think losing to West Ham, like, it was a decent performance. So we were just really struggled to break them down again. It's the kind of same story as a lot of games this season, where just maybe decision making. There was a few opportunities we had, like there was one late on with Kulusevski. Decision making wasn't very good, and I think there was just a little bit of rushing. I think that Ange was talking about that a little bit in his press conference today, just regarding how the players just need to be a little bit more calm sometimes and look at what's around them. And I think it was a decent performance, but like, let's face it, West Ham were kind of like, talk about a low block, and then they had their one sort of tactic of launching the ball, trying to get corners all the time. And in fairness, like, they've got Ward-Prowse and they've got Bowen, who are really, really impressive at delivering the ball. Mm-hmm. And that's how they got their goal. And every time they got a corner, I'm sure you boys were as nervous as I was. I mean, they're really, really threatening. And so they got their, they got their point. And I think it's probably a fair result in balance, although we were definitely technically, way better than them. We didn't really threaten them. Their keeper didn't really have that much to do. So I think it's probably more a point gained in the bigger picture of the other results this week. So yeah, it's not the end of the world.
This Zuma's deadly with his back, isn't he? I mean, you don't let him get his back to the ball.
Oh my God.
What control that was.
Yeah. That's going to go straight to the top of the YouTube compilation
video.
Yeah.
But there is a nervousness around some of those dead ball situations, the corners we do struggle with. Antonio was just not backing in, but he's so solid. He was just bent over with his backside stuck into Vic, and we don't seem to be able to do anything to counter that. He was getting blocked again all evening. I think. Yeah.
Did you put someone on Vic on our side? I forget who it was. I'm just going to say it was Romero to protect him. It might have been Maddison, actually.
I think it was Maddison.
West Ham just countered that well. Put 2 people on him then.
Yeah.
And the other 2 players just squeezed up again. And no one gets away with that. Typically, but anyway, that's another discussion. God, sorry. Your thoughts on whether it was a point gained or 2 points dropped and the overall performance?
So if you'd have asked me before the game, 1-1, it's not an unusual result for us to get a draw at West Ham. It's not an easy place to go. They're 7th after all in the league, right? So yeah. I think they'll finish above Man United. I really do. So we seem to think that West Ham are this like side 12th or 13th in the table. They're not, and they're 7th for a reason. And they're pretty good. In terms of, except for the Arsenal game, they're pretty good at home. So before the game, I would have said, listen, that point isn't a bad result. If you'd have asked me after 20 minutes of the game, I would say we should be taken into pieces, because they didn't play that low block for the first 15 minutes. They were actually quite open and coming out at us. And when Werner got the assist, and it was a nice little finish from Johnson as well, I thought. He had to really get his feet round and play it, and he was very close to being offside, but obviously wasn't. I thought that we could go on. It was a little bit like the game at the Lane, where it felt like we were going to kick on and really take it to them. And it had a similar sort of pattern. One area that I thought we could have done much better, I thought for the first time this season, Werner was very hesitant to attack the 6-yard box. I think there was a couple of times where we whipped balls across where the centre back or the left back, their right back, was able to get to the ball. In fact, he didn't get in front of his man effectively enough. And I don't know, I'm not quite sure why that was, but he just didn't seem to be as aggressive as we've seen him this season. But he got another assist. I think, 70%-ish, just under 70% in the end. But you've got to do something with that. And we looked, because of the low block and because they do that so well, we looked bereft of ideas in that final third. We couldn't seem to unlock the door there. And I was surprised when Maddison got took off, because I thought he was one that was showing some of those signs of being able to do that. And if there was anybody that was going to be able to, thread that ball, I thought it was going to be him. And it couldn't really be a fitness or a tiredness thing, because we just had them pressed into their own third. And so I was a little bit. I thought the first sub would have been Werner off, Son to the left, Richie down the middle, and then let's see what we can do with Maddison. Richie would then have given us a bit more of a aerial presence in the box, so it gives you a different ball into the box as well. But he didn't, and he's got to make the calls. And I think that 1-1 in the end, yeah, it's better than a loss. But I thought that we could have taken it to them, a little bit more. In that first half, I thought there's times where, and I don't know if you guys feel it, and we've had this discussion when Stu's on as well, about there's times where our build-up feels really pedestrian. We had a lot of the ball the other night, but a lot of that ball was Romero to Vic, Vic to Van der Ven to Vic, Vic to Romero. And there's times where Romero's just almost stood there on the ball, and I know he's trying to draw them on, but if they're not coming, you've got to do something else with it. And I just felt, and there was a couple of times when Werner broke, and there didn't seem to be people following up with him, and we're usually really quite good at that. I don't know, we just seem to have a little bit of an off night, but I'll take a point there, given, Johnny, your point about United dropping the points. I mean, that was comical last night, wasn't it? As much as I hate to see Chelsea win, it's lovely to see them lose like that. And that again, that was a point gained on United. Chelsea aren't going to trouble us in any shape or form this season, and I think that it's now a straight shootout between us and Villa for 4th and 5th.
Yeah, I did like your summary in the middle there, Si, where you said they've got to play with the balls more, and if they're not coming, got to try something different.
Yeah.
There's some good analysis there.
Clip that one. Clip that one. Someone put that into a remix.
So yeah, I do agree, and it's with Maddison. I feel like Richarlison probably didn't start up front because he's carrying an injury, judging by the fact he's just said he's out injured now. So that's probably why he paid for 10 minutes at the end. And in an ideal world, I think we've still got that issue of Maddison now plays deep. Werner's not really a goal scorer. Johnson is actually, to be fair to him, I think we've added a goal scorer to the front three, but you're just so reliant on him and Son to score everything. That we're just not capable of blowing teams away by 3-goal, 4-goal margins on a consistent basis. So we're always going to struggle in those tight games to put it to bed. But interesting, I saw a really interesting stat today. In terms of shots, and it involved Man United, in terms of shots conceded, who sits first in the Premier League this season, and where do you think we sit?
We're doing really well. We're like the third best or something like that, which really surprised me, because you think because of our openness and our high line that we would be facing an awful lot more. I can't remember who's got the best and the worst, but I know that Tottenham actually were surprisingly positive in that measure.
There was some ridiculous stat about Man United in the last 2 games or something.
It's the last 10.
Something like the last 10. It's almost triple figures, isn't it?
Yeah, there's more. They've exceeded 200 shots in the last 10 games.
Isn't it
more
50
shots
odd in the last 2?
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's crazy. They're shocking defensively. And then we've conceded I think it's the 3rd or 4th least, as Johnny says. I thought we'd be way higher up the charts in there. So that's really positive, because I think it goes against the stereotype that we're playing this all-out expansive football and then conceding lots, when the reality actually is we're not actually going all-out attack when I watch us play. Like, that's why I think we're saying it feels pedestrian. We're expecting all these players hard the pitch. In reality, we're actually playing quite a calm and structured game and trying to play out the back quite sensibly. And I think that's why people have this perception that's not quite reality with the playing style at the moment. And that will probably change.
Quick question to you. I don't know if you felt the same. I felt that at times now our passing was really sloppy. I mean, Bentancur let a couple. I thought he had a good game, by the way, but there was a couple of passes across the box where it looked dodgy. Basuma, again, they seemed just like lazy passes, almost as though they were on the training pitch rather than zipping it with some urgency, And I guess the weather didn't do the guys any favour either, because it was absolutely teeming down, right? So it must have been difficult in terms of control. But there was a couple of times where it just looked lackadaisical, the passing. It didn't have the urgency that I felt it needed.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Even Bentancur, I was watching the way he was passing the ball, and I was like, why is this kind of like slow side-footed passes all the time? Where's like the energy to really put the ball in with pace? And it is odd. I can't put my finger on what's causing that lack of momentum in the final third. Is it nerves? Is it just lack of confidence? I don't know. Scared of making a mistake?
Let's be honest, though, the amount of players behind the ball, I mean, like, it doesn't matter like how creative you are. Obviously, watching Manchester City the following night against Villa, you can see they're another level above what we've got, like, in terms of they're still knocking it around patiently the way we are, only you just can see that they're a little bit more adventure about making a slightly less obvious pass, and then we had some really nice exchanges of like 1-2s, a succession of passes like that, but just kept getting closed down. And I think like there was a lot of times we took one touch too many. And in particular, I thought Sonny was vulnerable to that. He was way off his usual level, and just like there was a couple of times I thought, you would have seen him shoot first time or take one touch and shoot, and he would just seem to be like not like just a little bit more hesitant than he usually was. And I think like that was sort of filtering through the team, and I think it's that kind of fine balance you've got with. I mean, we've spoken about it many times before when you're talking about confidence, and you can see at the moment when Johnson is involved, we've said the opposite about him so much in the earlier part of the season, but now he actually looks like probably our most dangerous player consistently over the last month or so. And he's expecting to make things happen. He's really anytime he's involved and is looking to get into positions and really playing with purpose. And I just think when we're in that situation against a well drilled defense with all of those numbers behind the box, you can understand it must get pretty frustrating. I guess the frustration is that when you get like West Ham had that chance with Antonio, you're going to get one or two chances like that in a game when you're breaking, like we did against Luton, and we got the second goal from our own corner. You get those rare opportunities, and when we had those opportunities the other day, we weren't clinical enough and didn't make the right choice of pass.
No.
And I think that's probably in the moment, like you said there, Si. I thought Basuma was maybe a little bit better than he has been over some of the recent performances, but still, like some of the passes, some of the misplaced passes are really, really kind of, you just don't affect at that level.
You've already said it. The Kulusevski one was just wow. I just thought for a player you've come on to prove your spot, and you just it just seemed crazy.
I think the Johnson point there, Johnny, is really interesting because we sort of touched on it, I think, on the last pod, where when he first came into the side, he looked like a player who was trying to execute an instruction. So doing what he's been asked to do and really concentrating on executing that instruction, he looks like he's now moved to the next stage of his development where he knows the instruction and that's a bit more natural. And now he's playing with a little bit more personality. He's playing with a little bit more flair because he knows what he should be doing and where he should be in certain circumstances. So he doesn't have to think about that so much now. And now he's playing with a lot more fluidity and he's looking a lot more comfortable in his own skin and playing the way that he wants to play.
Mm. Yeah, I agree. He's definitely stepped up to the point where you think he's going to take his man on finally. And he's playing with, I know what I'm doing naturally, rather I'm having to think about what I'm supposed to do next. And he's proving it. I think we've all been there. A lot of us, I was kind of one of the biggest fanboys when we first signed. I think he's going to be amazing. And then even I lost complete confidence in that initial thought. And then suddenly I'm back again where I started, that this guy's going to be a special player and absolutely key to us for the next few years at least in that squad. So do we want to go on to the press conference? Because there was some interesting...
I just ask what you think about Vicario? Because I mean, he's a lot of discussion over the last couple of days regarding our player of the season, and I mean, and a lot of people are putting him forward as and he certainly deserves to be in that mix. And if Stu was here, I know he would be 100% behind that, which is fair enough. My favorite player of the year is Van de Ven, although I know he's missed a fair chunk of the season, but I think he certainly makes a massive difference. And having him the other day, I know, he really does make a massive difference to the team. But going back to Vicario, I mean, there's clearly this since the January when the City got that goal from the corner, and then we had the Everton game for the corner, and I think the same thing happened against Wolves and against West Ham again. Like, it's not been as bad since he's been a little bit more protected by the referees and so on. But I mean, no one's questioning his ability, not just as a shot stopper, but his delivery and his ability with his feet and so on. He's been a brilliant signing. I'm interested in what you think about his how he's dealing with that threat from corners and from crosses, and because I'm not really sure. Would it be unfair to say that he could have been more decisive with the first goal or not? I'm not sure, to be honest. I wouldn't pin the blame on him first. And he did come out and kind of punch the ball away a few times, with a bit of conviction. But how do you see that element of his game? And I mean, certainly it's a hell of a lot better than the Reece towards the end of his time with us. But
personally, I don't blame that. It's clearly there's a debate to be had as to whether he's being unfairly targeted in a way that other goalkeepers, you would see blown up as a foul for time play or not. But ultimately, it's happening regardless. So it is a problem. We can only control what's in our control. What's within our control is finding a way of managing the situation. Though I kind of feel I don't pin it on Vicario being his fault, because he's got the only things he can only do what he knows. And I kind of feel like that this when it comes down to your goalkeeping coaches. You have a student, as it were, on your player, and it's like the same thing at school or any, at work, you have a mentor or whatever. You approach a challenge and you go to someone and you go, can you give me some advice? I don't know what to do in this situation. How can we overcome it? And I kind of feel it's down to the team and the coaching staff to figure out how they work him out of this situation, because he's clearly coachable. He will listen to advice and take it on and adapt his game. So I don't really pin it on him, and I do think there is definitely a percentage of this which is him being targeted a bit unfairly and having a reputation of being weak in the air, so they let him get away with it. I mean, some people said he needs to bulk up and all that stuff, but I'm kind of like, I think you might have it before, Si, someone did. If he goes and bulks up loads, you have to, something else gets traded off, and that would be his reflexes, and that's his biggest strength. So, it's more important to have a high reflex goalkeeper who's good at his feet in Ange's system than it is a big. We've got Fraser Forster, if we want a big strong lad,
exactly,
who can manage those corners already. So, and I know who I'd pick every day of the week. But Johnny, you've opened a good question here. Player of the season for you so far. Yours, Van de Ven. I've got a different one, but Si, who's yours?
I'm gonna side with Johnny on this one, I think, and the reason why, and I get the point that he's missed a few games and he's been out, but I think player of the season because of the difference he makes when he comes back. So for me, he's almost Virgil van Dijk. He makes such a difference to the way that the team does and can play. So the team plays that little bit higher up the pitch when he's playing as well, which allows us to condense the game in the middle, which then is the ground where Maddison and Basuma are more effective than when the game is stretched. But he also covers Udogie so well on that left-hand side and nullifies the breakaway threat down that channel, which allows Udogie the freedom to maraud upfield and come inside when he needs to, because he's got the protection of Van de Ven behind him. So, and I think just the way that he's slotted in and adapted to the Premier League as quickly as he has, this kick could be anything he wants to be, as long as his hamstrings stay intact and he manages that. Because a pace player, an explosive player, is always going to have some challenges there, but he could be whatever he wants to be. I think he's immense.
The other thing about Mickey is the impact he's made on Romero, and Romero's had a brilliant season.
Yeah,
I mean, you look at obviously, you kind of felt watching Kuti last season, especially as the season wore on, he was like just kind of turning up, and he, what is he? So his commitment to the club has never really been in question, but he was playing last season like waiting for a partner to turn up that he could actually, who could do him justice. As this World Cup winning, he's an absolute Rolls Royce. But Mickey's definitely provided that, and now especially that Dragoson's arrived as well. I don't know if it's coincidental or not, but remember we were all full of the fact that at the beginning of the season Romero wasn't even like giving away fouls, never mind taking cards, and then that went a little bit wobbly around October, November. But since I was reading today again that there's the cutoff for the suspensions is coming up on 32 matches. And unless, and I shouldn't say this, I'm going to touch some wood at this stage, but unless we get a red card in our next two games, none of the player on the most cards at the moment, I think, is Basuma, but with 7. So there's nobody is going to get suspended, and so until the final cutoff, and Romero hasn't been booked for quite some number of games too. So, and I think you have to put that down to competition, I suppose, from Dragoson as well. The fact that he's there. I know he's not in any likelihood of displacing either Romero or Van de Ven, but I think that Van de Ven, especially in his first season, I mean, he's very, very young. His first season in the Premier League, I think he surpassed anybody's expectations, and he just comes across as a really intelligent player and really driven, and like it's going back to that whole the recruitment of the personality as much as of the the ceiling that they have as players, and I think. Yeah, we're really lucky to have him because he's got massive potential, like a lot of our other players, who've got a long way to go in their career.
Just by the way, on the Vic being not so big thing, I've just had a look up. He's just shy of 6'4".
Wow.
Yeah, he's a big guy.
So but around some of those big centre forwards, then maybe he hasn't got the bulk of the Forster, but he's not a little lad.
He's not. No, he's not. But he's just a slighter frame, I think is the way to put it. But yeah, on the player of the season thing, I kind of have a slightly different view on it because we haven't. By the way, it's funny that no one's mentioned our top goal scorer, who's looks like he's going to score 20 plus goals this season in Sonny again. But I think we're just so used to his brilliance that we just take it for granted. But I think like every player's performance is influenced by the players closest to them. And it's a bit like that old stat, isn't it? There's some stat in the world that your average income over a life is typically the average of the 5 people you hang around with the most. And I kind of think the similar things in football, like you are as good as the closest players around you. And with Van der Ven and Romero, I think they're both kicked on the season because of each other, like you both highlighted. Whereas I'd say the opposite has been the case for Maddison, where maybe our midfielders have dropped off in the performance levels we expect. He's now having to drop deep. He's now having to do things he's uncomfortable with. And therefore, his performance is dropping off. Whereas when we saw the best of him, it was not coincidence that it was when Basuma was having his best games. And Maddison was further up the pitch, having a whale of a time, with confidence to, sending Saka on his arse and all that stuff. It was really good to watch. And it's similar with Sonny. I think Sonny hasn't looked like he seems to score in games like he's not even playing well, but he's coming out with goals. I kind of feel with him, it's like he's had he's been very limited creativity around him, which has made his job infinitely more difficult. So I kind of have like maybe not my player of the season, but I'd say I've got a lot of kudos has to go to someone like Sonny as well, who's had to dig deep this year to drag us over the line a lot of games. But yeah, I think overall it is between Vicar and Van der Ven, isn't it? Even though Romero's probably been the most consistent player this season, and our most reliable player this season. Yeah. Do we want to talk about the presser? Because talking about the squad sounds like Ange has mentioned a few. The main sound bites I took from it was Richarlison's going to miss Nottingham Forest. Solomon and Forster are out for the season in rehab. But there was someone else out for the season, wasn't there? Sessegnon. Brian Hill hasn't been seen in months, but no one knows where he is. But there was also this piece around how important is Champions League. And the reporter really pushed him and said, look, you're not weaseling out of this one, mate. You know what I mean. It's the money you get from that you can reinvest back into players. It accelerates your process. And Ange disagreed. He said, look at Newcastle. They got better with all that extra money and all that extra process. If we're not ready for that level and the team isn't improving, it's no point being in the competition. What did you guys make of the press conference anyway? And was there anything else you picked out?
I do like the way that, I get that the report was pressing him, but I thought his answer was, straightforward. I don't think there was much to read into it. He's very much about, it's not about the achievement for the achievement's sake is not an achievement. Do you know what I mean? It's nothing unless you push on from it. So it has to be a stepping stone to something else. So just get into the Champions League to get the money so that maybe you can attract different level of player. Maybe you can attract better players. Yes, but we haven't struggled with that this season. And if we pushed on this season, we pushed on massively so this season. And we've had the middle of the season with the injuries and the suspensions. If you were able to have a full team there, then we're comfortably fourth. We're on the coattails. We're on the coattails of City, and we were discussing at the game, the Luton game, the group of us, Jim, whether the Newcastle experience of jumping straight into the Champions League after a season not having any European football at all, is that a jump too far? And would the Europa League be a better development opportunity for some of the youth players and some of the fringe players coming through? Maybe. It's a discussion to be had. I'm not saying yes or no, but there's a discussion to be had around there. Newcastle, to be fair, I'm not sure his comparison to Newcastle is totally fair. The number of injuries that they've had, for starters, is I think it's way exceeded ours now. We had a period of time where that was where that was a nightmare. And then we had the then they've had a nightmare Champions League draw where every single game was a must-win game, and they've had a nightmare run in the FA Cup where they came up against all the big guns. So I think Eddie Howe's had an absolutely nightmare season in terms of that. But getting into the Champions League, it's a nirvana for us, and it gives us something more as a team, I think, than just the money.
Yeah, I think it's more than the money. I think it's missing the whole experience of being in the Champions League for me. But do you think, though, there's a connection between the injuries that Newcastle and Man United have suffered whilst being in Europe, because they don't have the effective squad depth to rotate with confidence, and therefore players are being put into backlogged fixture congestion, and therefore that's resulting in a lot of injuries?
Not for Man United. Man United can't level that with the amount of money they've spent. No, Newcastle, yeah. All right, I'll take that with Newcastle. Not with Man United. No,
they were out of Europe. They didn't even drop into the Europa League, did they? So they were straight out.
Just put Man United down to terrible management. And
yeah. Another thing Anne shared that I thought was quite interesting, and it was like, the fact that we've got the advantage of not having cup distractions in European football and so on. But he was making the point that as a result of the City postponement, we've got another gap of 15 games,
15 days.
Days, that's the word. Without a game, and there's been quite a few times when we've had extended periods where he was saying we don't have the rhythm of regular football. And there's one thing, kind of, if you're playing every Saturday or every Sunday or whatever, like, you've got the week to prepare and it's more manageable. But I definitely think that going into the North London derby with a very almost 2 weeks with no game isn't gonna, it's not ideal. And yeah, sure, there's the alternative pressure, I guess, of having games in quick succession, but we've got that as well now because of the way that the fixtures have stacked up at the end of April. Now the Chelsea game's been rescheduled for only 3 days
Thursday,
after the Liverpool game, so it's like we've literally got Arsenal on Sunday, Chelsea on Thursday, and Liverpool on Sunday. Like that's a pretty, and to say that's intense is putting it mildly. It's going to be we're going to have 6 games because the City game has to be squeezed in probably to the last week now. So you've got talking about 6 games in the last 21 days or something. It's pretty insane.
They're two sides of the same coin, aren't they? Too many fixtures against too few. Yeah. There's a happy medium in the middle, which is probably the one a week. And giving you time to recover and prepare. So too many is a bit of a challenge, and too few is a massive challenge as well.
Yeah, I think the reason it's been such a difficult year for us with fixtures as well is because if you're in Europe and in the Cups, the teams that aren't in Europe and in the Cups have to move to accommodate you. So they go, you've got these fixtures in Europe coming up, Wednesday,
Friday, Monday, yeah.
Everyone else will have to move to make it work for you. If you can't play on a Thursday and then a Saturday, so they'll have to move to Sunday. So we've been the victim of that every time. Everyone else is going, Tottenham are going to move for me. Tottenham are going to move for me, and therefore it's just been sudden droughts versus sudden flurries of fixtures. And I guess for Ange, that's really challenging to manage. So yeah, I do think being in Europe will be good for us. I think we're rich enough to have a squad where we need to be in Europe. To accommodate the squad and attract the players who want to be in, so they know they're going to like Dragic.
Development.
Yeah, he'd be playing. You assume he's the type of player who'd start every Europa League game, and you'd go, brilliant. We're not just chucking on some kid from the academy here. We're playing a really good player who's going to get some crucial minutes, and then he's going to be ready to step up when someone does inevitably have a suspension or an injury. All eyes on Forest this weekend, guys. Fixture meltdowns and messes. How are we feeling this as a home game? So are you going in with confidence? Should we ever go in with complete confidence in the Premier League? But are you going in with Luton levels of confidence that ended up being a much tighter game than we expected? Johnny, what do you think?
I'd be a bit more confident against Forest than I was against Luton, to be honest with you. Just the way that they play, I think they're a little bit more adventurous. Although Luton have deserve a lot of plaudits, I think, for how they've recovered from a really ropey start to the season. But looking at the stats in terms of Forest's away record, like it's pretty awful. Like I think they've lost 60% of their away matches, and they've really struggled. And their last five, and just looking at their last five, they've they've won 3 out of 15 away games, and they've lost 9. So yeah, is that right? And drawn 4, so 9 out of 15, whatever that is as a percentage. I could figure it out. Hopefully, there's no one in my class working at 9-15. Simplify that. It is 60%. Yeah, it is 60%. So yeah, they drew with Luton, they drew with Bournemouth, and they lost to Brighton, Villa, and Brentford in their last 5 away games. And none of those teams are I mean, Villa are obviously a decent side, Brighton are a decent side, but Spurs are better than all of them, in my opinion. And I just think we just, if we got a good start, like we just seem to, we did get a good start, ironically, against West Ham. But at home, we've just seemed, in particular, we just seem to be drawing blanks and often going behind. And let's be honest, could easily happen again. But I think that the fact that they are a little bit more open, they do have a lot to play for, though. Obviously, they're right up against it, and they got Nuno firing on all cylinders, like in the away dugout.
Nuno
making them proud. For old Nuno. But no, I think I'd be quite confident. I think we'll win by a couple of goals. I think we'll be too good for them. Yeah.
Cool. 2 goals,
so.
Si. 2-goal win, and is that good enough to appease our slightly high maintenance fan base?
I don't know, anything other than a 5-goal win. I don't think it'll appease some of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I'm in the same sort of ballpark as Johnny. 2 or 3 goals, I think it would be a good statement for us. I mean, Johnny, you were giving some of the stats of their away form. They conceded 30 goals in those 15 games on the road as well. So they're averaging two goals a game away from home. I don't think they don't tend to sit particularly defensively. I don't think they have got some pace up front. That'll be a watch out for us. And if Chris Wood plays, he's decent in the air. So set pieces could be a bit of a challenge for us. So I don't know if we keep a clean sheet. I think maybe 2 or 3-1. And seeing as Johnny, did you go 2-1, Johnny?
I think I'd go 3-1.
3-1. I would go 3-1 as well. I think we need to get a couple of goals in there, and Johnson to have a stormer against his old club, and I think he could get a couple with Sonny getting 1.
Yeah, 3-1 for you. Okay, I will go for the pretty standard response, which actually is mostly spot on this season, which is 1-0 down at half time. Everyone to have a meltdown. 70th minute, we suddenly score a flurry of 2 to 3 goals and win the game 2-1 or 3-1. And half the fan base is delighted, singing, enjoying their day out, enjoying the football, while someone lurks behind them and tries to bring the mood down, going, well, good enough though, was it? First half was rubbish. I'm not convinced about Ange anymore. No, not having this.
Big shout to Johnny L for the 2-1 against Luton. He called it early doors, didn't he, Johnny L, in the ground last week?
He did. So yeah, I think that's it, guys. We'll wrap up there.
Nice one.
We'll catch up again I'm in the US next week, so if we can try squeeze a recording in no, we can't. It's on Sunday now, isn't it, the game? So we'll try fit in something anyway. But up the Spurs.
Go on, you Spurs.
Go on, you Spurs.